Welcome everybody to today's MindChat public webinar, ISO compliant risk and opportunity management with MindManager. So my name is Stephen Beschford. I'm Director Technical Services at MindChat and Corel GmbH. And I'm very happy to have a long-term and highly admired partner of MindChat on my side who is delivering the presentation today. It's Dr. Marco Gruber from GRUBER and Partner. Before I'm talking too much and maybe nobody is hearing us, we are doing a connection test. So if you can hear us and if you can see us, please raise your hand in the GoToWebinar panel here on this side. Okay, that seems to look very good. Also, please, if you want to ask questions throughout the presentation or after the presentation, you can also raise them here in the GoToWebinar panel. So, some information about today's webinar. So, first of all, it's a public webinar. It will take us round about 45 minutes for presentation, including questions and answers at the end of the webinar. The webinar will be recorded, and everything that you see today is actually presented with MindManager 2017 in combination with Microsoft Windows and MS Office 2013. After the webinar, we will send out a follow-up email with some information which includes a link to the recording of the webinar. If you may have further questions after the webinar, you can raise them to the email address webinar@mindchat.de. So some information about Marco. So, first of all, Dr. Marco Gruber, he is a lawyer. He's chairman of GRUBER and Partner located in beautiful Switzerland. The company has 20 employees and amazing news actually on 1st of April. So on Saturday actually GRUBER and Partner had its 50th company anniversary. So Marco, congratulations for this.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
So the focus of Marco is actually the development of companies. Here the focus is on innovation and change management and on risk management, and Marco is actually delivering his services to enterprises, institutions, as well as to public authorities. Also, Marco is actually developing and implementing management tools, so addressing his focus themes. Marco has many years of experiences, and he also obtained a lot of international innovation awards that you can actually see here in the middle now. So, Marco, welcome, actually. And I'm very happy to have you here, and I will now pass over the stage to you.
The virtual stage. Thank you very much, Stephen. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big pleasure to have you on board. We will be very compliant today with ISO 9001-2015 on the one side, and with ISO 31000 on the other hand. We will focus on ISO compliant risk and opportunity management because this is new, or at least focus on ISO 9001. And I would like to show you how you can develop and implement, a compliant approach that really means something to the development of the company. So without any further ado, let me just summarize the developments in ISO 9001 briefly. I mean, you know what's happening right now. We're in a transition period which will last until 2018. And after September 2018, the certification of the ISO 9001-2008 will no longer be valid. That is a little bit stressy maybe for some of our participants. I hope not, because you know, the rules are pretty strict. There are some other boundaries around 9001. For one thing, there are no specific prescribed documented procedures. That is official, so you have a relative freedom how you want to document your procedures and processes. That is for one thing. And then the big change, as you can see, is this risk-based thinking, which should enhance process approach in the new version, respective ISO 9001-2015. And I found a slide on the net which I would like to show you as well. So you hear the similarity, or you see the similarities and differences. Small differences in the blue zone, immediate or moderate changes in the green, and in the orange zone you have risk and opportunities, context of the organization, as well as interested parties. So that's a major change in the 9001-2015. To be brief, you know, a risk, especially in ISO 31000, is very specifically designed or defined. It is defined as an effect of uncertainty on objectives. And this definition holds some obstacles and some opportunities. I wrote objectives here this way, so we will come back to this objective theme later on. The key question in risk management always is what can happen. Not what will happen, but what can happen. So there's lots of imagination, wild fantasies, incredible thoughts, you know, let your imagination go wild. Nothing's wrong, right? Usually from experience we can say we lack imagination, but with the right question, that is what can happen, we are maybe better in place to find the real threats. In ISO 31000, which is also relevant for ISO 9001, there are 3 steps how you deal with risks. First of all, you have to identify them, then you have to analyze them, and then you have to assess them. Now, since 9001 has to deal with processes, mainly processes, you know, we have to apply these 3 steps to processes as well. And that can be done very easily in MindManager, for example. As you can see here, we have a very, very simple process, input, process, outputs. Here, for example, energy, process, product, and a risk assessment, risk identification, risk analyzing should be done in every single step. And I will show you how this works in a very easy way, because it's the only way I can manage risks. It must be very, very simple. We use map parts there. They're custom designed and custom developed, and you will see them in action pretty soon. For example, here, if I click on this arrow, you can see we always try to find an effect with a certain cause. So that's the cause and effect relationship, which is essential in risk management overall, and that applies also to process risk management. Then we can answer a question like, can the cause, very important, be influenced? We can say yes or no. Do we have any casualties to be expected, or do we have any measures in the process to reduce the risk? If we have no measures in place, then we write none, right? Because we want to be honest. No fake risk assessment. So that is, you know, as you can see, very simple. So we have map parts which we include at every step in the process and document risk management that way. Of course, you can do that in your whole process landscape. As you can imagine, you have management processes, core processes, and support processes. If you have to include the map part in here, it's going to be a little difficult to gain or to keep oversight. But it leads us very far. You will see how that works. So let's talk about risk management first. With respect to ISO 9000, we have, of course, processes. And there, as you could see, we're pretty free how we want to design them, right? We can use a very strict approach, or we can use a pretty playful approach. Nothing's wrong, both is possible. And if you look at, for example, incident management, a landscape that Stephen Bashford designed with his team, even though it's in German, it doesn't matter. You know, you can see how easy it is to draw processes in MindManager. There you would only have to include these map parts in place and make a risk assessment in every possible step. So that is one thing, right? Risk management has to do with processes. But risk management, according to ISO 9001, also deals with projects. There's a section on it that says the 9001 is relevant for projects as well. So the good thing, or the good news, is one approach for processes, one approach for projects as well. And I'm going to show you this here with a project that we did in a company called Nexpertise in Wiel, which is in Switzerland as well. And they built a nodes connector. And here you can see clearly an IT project with a starting position, the objectives, as you may recall. Then we have the execution phase and maybe lessons learned. So if you go through the objectives, you first define them and you write them down, right? This project is about step 1 or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And here in these essential steps, you could include the map parts and make a risk assessment right here in these single steps. That means once you have defined your criteria, you could use predefined map parts, put them over or pull them over and have them in place, right? With an effect, with a cause, and with measures in place. What do we need to do to reduce the risk and keep that thing in place? Now the most important thing, once you have identified and analyzed a potential risk which could eliminate or keep us from reaching the objective, is how do you measure that? How do you assess it? And usually worldwide, you know, you calculate in 2 dimensions. First dimension is so-called probability. So with a probability of 17%, this risk might occur. And the second dimension is financial damages. Now, as we all know, we do not live in a 2-dimensional world, right? We live in a 3-dimensional world. That is pretty sure to say. So we included reputational damages on top. We changed the probability by occurrence. We then had it added financial damages, just like the usual way risk management is done, but we included reputational damages as well. So that gives us a great freedom in how we assess risks. The first thing you always have to do, though, is to define the criteria, right? If you go through 3 dimensions, we have occurrence over time. There you're free to define your time frame, which is good or appropriate to your enterprise. You have financial damages into certain levels, and you have reputational damages. Why do we separate reputational damages? Very simply, because financial damages can be very small, reputational damages can be very high. And if you look around you in the economy of today, I mean, there are so many examples where financial damages are very small, but reputational damages are huge. So this is the scheme that we use for our 3-dimensional approach. And we give in points, right? So an occurrence over time, which happens just about 1 to 10 years, gets 4 points. With a financial damage of 200,000 euros, dollars, whatever, we'll get 3 points. And a reputational damage, which is a high one, will have 4 points. So we have 3 or 4, 3, 4, and then we calculate the rating. Here you can see that. So in the example that we did, we had a 4 in occurrence, a 3 in financial, and again a 4 in reputational damages, and if I calculate it, it changes to orange. That is the actual status of this risk. And since this is actual, I'd like to have a planned status of this risk. So we have to do measures which reduce occurrence from 4 to 2, from financial damages from 3 to 1, and reputational damages from 4 to 1. Then we end up in the blue zone. And the blue and the green zone, these are the good ones. The yellow, orange, and red ones, you always have to do things against these risks. So I don't want to make it more complicated, but that's the way, a very simple way. You just draw the map parts into the diverse steps of a project. You calculate them, and all of a sudden you have a perfect project risk management system, which is absolutely in line with ISO 9001. So far so good, right? We've seen risk management in processes and risk management in projects. But what about the opportunity management? I mean, you know, it's human to be on the negative side. That's pretty easy, you know, talking about threats and risks and everything. But what about the opportunity management? Shouldn't there be a similar approach where opportunities are identified, analyzed, and assessed as well? Well, it's a rhetorical question. That's why we have this webinar here on the one side, and that's why we created NextCube. NextCube is a very simple methodology in line with ISO 9001, which starts with processes. Down here, we include all of our processes in an enterprise, in an organization, no matter what. We have management processes, core processes, and support processes. And here, down here, we can, you know, include documents which refer to core process 31 or whatever number scheme you use. And the cool thing is, as you know, with MindManager, you can include any kind of document. That can be a PDF, that can be a Word, PowerPoint. It could even be special software as long as you have it locally installed. That's no problem. So you do not have to redesign your processes. But, and of course Stephen would love that, over time you could start redesigning your processes with MindManager, which does a great job on a very, very simple basis. And I can really underline this. We do not sell MindManager, so we're completely free of a conflict of interest. I think it's just a simple tool, or the best tool, to address these visualization processes overall. So once you're done with this, you go to the top of this NextCube map, and here we included 5 sections, which could be a source of events, right? So there could be events in the economy, environment, society, technology, and state, which are relevant, or are of relevance to you, to your company, to your entity. Once we have identified these events, we list them up. For example, here we have, you know, just several lines. You can fill them in by yourself. Any type of text. You just add lines. This is not Swiss German, by the way. You can draw this sign here. If this is not relevant, you just exit out. So over time, you know, you get sort of like a collection, your collection of events which are relevant to you. So for example, gap, young, old, that is relevant in the society, it can be relevant for you as an employer, it can be relevant for you as a hospital, whatever. And what we do, we provide a database, knowledge database of GRUBER Partner, where we have many documents listed which respond to certain tasks or certain topics that we list in this map. So for example, this is based on Evernote. You can start Evernote from within MindManager and you get this really nice view here. If you want to see something about gap, young and old, I just type it in and then it searches the database and maybe it will come up with really cool stuff. Mostly, I must admit, is in German, but we did find some documents in English, so we're starting to provide content which is handpicked in this area. Let me just see, we change to the negative side and search for gap, young, old one more time. So that was the opportunity side. As you could see, didn't find many things.
Marco, there are some questions which are all pointing to one thing which might be important to explain it to understand the rest of your presentation. Mm-hmm. It's actually about map parts. So first of all, maybe can you explain what a map part is? And some questions are also related to what are the topic properties actually. So are those database fields or are you actually filling them out manually? So maybe you can explain this now because I think it's important to understand the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, with pleasure. So the first, let's start with the last question. This is not database related, it's just pure text. So it's something like a brainstorming, right? That you can add here. If you have a connection to Evernote data, to our Evernote databases, then you have the exact measurement, as you could see, gap, young, old responds to that topic which I just wrote down. I will show you more on that approach in extremis, then you see it even better. That's for the last question. And the first question, what is a map part? I think just give me 5 more minutes, Stephen, and I'll come back to this as well in all details. I think that's a very differentiating function in MindManager. I do not know any other software which can do that. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So here it did find some articles about dementia cases on the rise. That should do it for right now. In technology, Industry 4.0. Let me see if I enter 4.0, which is relevant in many industry sections. There we find other articles as well. Or if we continue in the state and we say Brexit, which is a topic of relevance, maybe it will find some articles on Brexit as well, maybe it will not. Then you go to the internet. It sort of gives you the idea, right? So this, yeah, here you can see that. These are all articles that we collected with respect to Brexit. It's just a source of inspiration. It has no, other than that, it has no concrete value added. But this is how you usually start. And once you have these topics in place, you define them. Is it potentially a threat or is it potentially an opportunity? And the only thing that you need to decide, it should be either opportunity or threat. I'm really allergic to the notion that, you know, every threat represents an opportunity. That's a completely wrong approach from my experience, because it's mainly a threat or it's mainly an opportunity. So if it's mainly a threat, then we come to the map part, and here we finally are. In the map part, you know, we list potential threats, and we, as we could see in the projects, we define criteria in these 3 dimensions, right? Occurrence, financial damage, and reputational damage. And then we analyze and we identify, analyze, and assess these threats and put them into risks that way. So we have a potential cause that we can type in. We can say, is it influential or is it not? Yes, it is influential because that gives us additional freedom to fight the sources, and it has certain effects. And what I'm doing here is just filling out a map part. This one is programmed or programmable. As you can see here, these are all the lines which are part of this map part that we specifically programmed and developed. We even go further here, right? We, you know, in case you have an explosion in your entity, if you have a new process going on and this explosion may hurt people or even kill people, then I think it's nothing but right if you include that consequence into your risk management system as well. Not many systems go as far as we do here, but I think it's the right approach. So if we have no people injured, planned injured, then we're on the safe side, right? And we even have a little figure here which has no loss of human capital, and vice versa. If we have a loss of human capital, then we should change that. So we have identified and analyzed, and now we assess it, as I said, in 3 dimensions. How many times can such an event occur on the negative side, according to the defined criteria section above 2, 3, and 4. And if I enter the figures, this will change to yellow. You may recall this. These are the risks ratings that will follow this process. So we have a difference now between the actual status and the planned status. So here we have to deal with that, right? We have to think, who we do have to alert? What about immediate actions to get from yellow to green? What about continuity management from yellow to green? And what about communication to this risk, internally and externally? And this is what we do with every single potential threat that we identify on the horizon. So in the end, you have a whole list of potential risks. And that is the risk management aspect to us in ISO 9001. It is, and that is important to know, completely in line with ISO 31000. That is the big enterprise management, risk management system. So we derived and reduced complexity to make it as easily handleable as possible. That is the negative side. These are the threats. Now, what about chances, or not chances, opportunities is better. We have to do the same thing here. We can't calculate it in 3 dimensions, unfortunately, but we can identify, analyze, and assess opportunities as well. So we could say the economic development at present, represents an opportunity to our core processes or to our management processes. So we have to define them. We have to write them down. We give them a head title. And we fill in the cause and effect on the positive side. And we identify many of them, as many opportunities as possible, and we give them a priority, right? You can change priority by just clicking on this figure here, on this number. Or you can change relevance and say, this is of increasing relevance, the opportunity headline 5, but that's not true. It actually goes down. It's a decreasing relevance, So it should not have priority 3. It might not even have any priority. It may drop off the list of opportunities. So we have identified, analyzed them. Now how do we assess them? We use an Excel tool which we created. And the Excel tool does the job and gives us in the end a list of solutions that we could say, okay, opportunity headline 5 is our primary solution, opportunity headline 2 is our secondary solution. And as you can see, you just double click and you end up in Excel. Here you have all the benefits of an Excel tool with all these beautiful diagrams which you then could print or include in a report. So then you're done with ISO 9001. And here, let me just see that. You just hide this Excel list and you're back on track. So overall, we tried to make it as simple as possible. We start from the processes that you have in place, management processes, core processes, and support processes. We identify events in economy, environment, society, technology, and state. And then we derive the results in terms of are they potentially a danger or a threat, or are they potentially an opportunity with respect to our processes. And then we fill in these map parts on the negative side, and here these lines which we created on the positive side, and give them beautifully looking Excel sheet on top of that. That is sort of like the small version of ISO 9001, completely compliant, but that is the focus on ISO 9001. As I said before, you know, there's ISO 31000 as well. This is an incredibly powerful enterprise risk management system, worldwide accepted, but you cannot have it certified, right? That's the negative side of it. Many of the ideas of ISO 31000 flew into 9001. One can see that in many ways. Now, if you're a large corporation, you can imagine that you have many, many risks, and that will go beyond the potential of NextCube. So you need a larger system. And the largest system, which is compliant with ISO 31000 as well as with COSO, we call Nextranis. A lot of that you will recognize again, right? We have a risk assessment to do, and we have a risk treatment to do. But other than that, we have this fantastic framework which surrounds the whole risk management system. And here, and that's one of the key differences, we do not focus on objectives only, we focus on the so-called normative framework. Now, what is a normative framework? Very simple, you know. On the basis of everything we do, we have values. Values are the foundation of everything we do economically in our daily lives. Values. From the values, you derive on the left side the vision, as well on the right side as the mission. Values, vision, and mission, all of them will in the end lead to the O, to the objectives. So now you can see why it is, in our view, not enough just to focus on objectives. You should take values, vision, and mission into consideration as well. And this is what you can easily include, the documents that you have, you just add them over here. Risk policy is relevant. It's derived from enterprise policy. Risk culture derived from the enterprise culture. And here is the next big difference. You know, we do risk management with a certain cause, right? We want to be more resilient at the end of the day. So resilience is one of the key benefits of risk management systems, especially if you do it preemptively, right? If you try to do them as a leading principle in your organization. So there you can in the end, you know, put all the the risks which are cured to a green or blue status, and which gives you a very good overview of where we have achieved resilience over time. So the two main aspects here, risk assessment and risk treatment, are extensively visualized. As well, as you know, we have to define the criteria. That is nothing new. You're already a specialist on this. We do that individually for large, very large corporations worldwide, for ports, airports, critical infrastructures. You can have very clear criteria how you find relevant causes. And here is the main difference, right? You have lots and lots and lots of sources of inspiration. In workshops which we do, you go through this list and it's very simple, right? You say this is relevant to us or it's not relevant to us at all, and then you just exit out. Or you say genetic engineering is relevant or is not relevant, money laundering, relevant, not relevant, organized crime, corruption, that's a mere coincidence, this picture here. So we have lots and lots of sources, once again in Evernote as well. We go through these causes. All we have here are causes, not one single effect, just a cause. But the cause, of course, will end up in an effect. Once it's relevant, we define the entity, your company, down here. And we say, okay, we have critical infrastructure which can be hurt by certain causes. We have critical processes, and here you see these three types of processes again: critical resources, critical interfaces, and critical intangible assets, including the normative framework. So this may look a little bit complicated, but believe me, it's very simple. This here represents your protected area where no risk may dive into, and this is the source of potential threats that might be a cause for doing your damage, which we don't want. So once we're done with that, just to give you an example, I take this risk headline here and I say, okay, we have a problem with critical infrastructure. I just put it in under this topic. I enter cause and effect. I take care that no one's injured, hopefully. And then I do the risk assessment. Once again, the very same map part as you saw before in the processes as well as in the projects. So it's very simple. It's really consistent. So once we've done this, we cannot stop. Unfortunately, we have to do something against it. In the end, we take it out. This could be a very long list. So we cut it out and we transfer it into the separate area where all the risk treatments are listed. And now you can imagine that, it's very, very simple to get an overview. Where do we have what kind of risks in place, and what are the measures in place against these risks? Very important, we include the business continuity management approach of ONR 49000, which is a translation of ISO 31000 by the Austrians. They did a phenomenal job, and they're the only ones who include business continuity management into their ISO 31000 approach. And we've done this here too. So here, of course, you can filter, you can rearrange, you can do whatever you want. I think you know how that works. So that's the risk management approach on the entity. On large corporations, international corporations, you get incredible precise results, especially if you have them in 3 dimensions. Risk Monitor I showed you already. That's the same database which you saw. One thing I'd like to show you in brief, since time is running, is Scene Builder. Right now, and that's important for you to know in ISO 9001 as well as in 31000, we are in enterprise or in risk management, I would say 1.0 right now, because we use single risk and we take another single risk and another single risk, and that's not reality, right? Reality are scenarios. One risk is the cause for the next risk is the cause for the next risk. And if you look at this very simple design, you all remember Fukushima? There was an earthquake or a seaquake, you know, which had a direct effect on the energy infrastructure, right? The atomic power plant of Fukushima. One could not imagine that an earthquake could hit this atomic power plant, for example, in 5 minutes, and that the same earthquake could cause a tsunami, which then later will have an impact on the already damaged atomic power plant. That was unimaginable at the time. If you read the report, the government report, it was simply beyond imagination. And all the other things, you know, the pollution, the supply systems which collapsed, food safety which was in danger, all of that, you know, could not be visualized at all. Critical processes, once the risk cross this line here, they're within your reach, then you have to deal with them if you're TEPCO. And as you know, the management processes, the crisis management, the business continuity management processes, everything did not work. That's why this disaster really happened. So, you know, it's very, very simple to just drag and drop single risks into scenarios. It just needs a wild imagination. That's pretty much all. And if you look at what happened apparently just 15 minutes ago, I understand, in Davos, ooh, that doesn't look good at all. They had very heavy precipitation from 2 weeks ago until practically today. And then, what happened then? Okay, heavy storms. The last 12 hours, heavy storms in Davos. You may have noticed this, read in the newspapers. And here, look at this, landslide at municipality of Davos. H-time, that was 14 minutes ago. What happens? A huge rock slide, you know, fell into the Davosers say, I can't believe that. And 5 minutes later, that caused a huge flood. Look at this, and a huge flood 10 minutes later went all through Davos into the power plant number 1. Oh my goodness, what a disaster. And I hope they did their job because, they did, yeah, look, they prevented blackout, explosions, mass panic. So they're pretty much in place. But what is over here? Look, oh, landslide. If this happens in 2 hours, you know, the whole evacuation route for Davos is blocked. Nobody can escape. And in 4 hours, they expect mudslides. Can you imagine all the turbulences down there? They're trying to save the power plant and evacuate the people, and all of a sudden the mudslides come in? No, that was just pure fiction. As you can imagine, you know, what I want to show you is this is so easy to do. It takes about 20 minutes to assess or to design such a scenario. If you have to solve it, you know, it takes you weeks to be back on track. That's, to me, this is risk management 2.0, which is coming definitely. That's no question, because that's real world scenarios. You can just drag and drop them here. Good. So we're through with Extremis, the big one, 31,000 system, Extremis with Risk Monitor and Scene Builder. And just to finish it off, everything is part in the end of a system, of a management system, enterprise management system, which we designed, which is called GovernNext. This is very customer focused on the one side, and products and services are on the other side here as well, products and services. And here we got the customers. So we have everything we do in customer retention we build here, everything in customer acquisition over here. If we want to deploy portfolio development, we do it over here, and strategic initiatives for new customers with new products and services, we put them on this side. So that's enterprise development. And if you look at the governance section, of course, you will find Trend Finder, as you could see before, and Extremis. The whole risk management system is in place, and all in a very neat and very, very simple to use user interface. That is only possible with MindManager, and I'm really proud. It took me ages, to be honest, to design this, but now we're on the safe side. So eventually I closed the main. Let me just go back here, excuse me. That's a good question. Here we go. So, sorry for this interference. So to wrap it up, I would highly recommend you one single enterprise-wide integral system approach. Do not have different systems in place. Do not have an internal control system in place which does not correspond with the big enterprise risk management system, be that ISO 31000, be that ISO 9001, 2015. And you have to do a thorough and careful approach with respect to risks on the one side and with opportunities on the other side. There's some new literature just which came out a few weeks ago. It was written by Dr. Miriam Durer, and she wrote about the duty of the board of directors to integral risk management in small and medium enterprises. I can tell you it's a fantastic book. It deals with COSO ARM and ISO 31000 as well, so if you have any questions, you will find her on LinkedIn, and she's the expert for right now here in Switzerland. So that's one thing, one single enterprise-wide approach. Go 3D, you have to take care of reputations and reputational damages as well. So ask your enterprise risk manager how you deal with reputational 3Ds or damages. If you do not know how, give me a call, I will tell you how. Very important, do not focus on objectives only. I know it's compliant with ISO 9001 and ISO 31000 as well. To me, normative framework is the relevant benchmark. It's far wider than just usually financial objectives, because it includes values, vision, and mission as well. And the big opportunity which you have is you can integrate MindManager with MS SharePoint, and now you can even integrate it with IBM Notes. So we will introduce a connection, complete integration of MindManager into IBM Notes on 31st of May in Berlin at DNUG, Deutsche Notes User Group. I'll have a speech there and introduce complete integration of MindManager with IBM Notes.
Marco, many thanks for a great presentation. There are a lot of comments here which I'm currently receiving who also say great presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been a pleasure working together with you again.
Okay. Marco, basically bye-bye for now. Thanks again.
Sure.
And thanks again for everybody who has joined the webinar. I wish you a very nice day. And the last word I can just say is bye-bye.
Customer, you know it would be great. The quarter's coming to a close, so please don't hesitate. Place your order right away.